This is Democracy Watch. So, Mark, you went on Twitter and signaled alarm about the Republicans suing for the right to harass election workers, which is a topic that we've covered in a previous video. Well, Steve Bannon issued this response to you.
This report is going on offense. You're seeing it all over the place. What's people, the Charlie Kirk group, going out and registering voters, Scott Presler, getting ready for a massive get out the vote, chasing ballots, people on the legal side, Segal Chadha, up in Nevada. Mark Elias is melting down about what she's doing, going on offense legally to make sure that you don't have these corrupt officials, you don't have these officials that are counting ballots. Segal's all over this to make sure we get into the counting rooms, we get there to make sure that they can't steal it again. And we understand this is a fight, particularly on the mail-in ballot side.
And of course, we now have an update to the issue that Steve Bannon himself was talking about. What happened here?
All right, so first of all, I can't let the moment pass. Steve Bannon's kind of obsessed with me. He is. I was not melting down. In fact, the update is, believe it or not, I know this will come as a shock, the Republican lost. Okay, so the Nevada lawsuit got dismissed. Steve Bannon's out there,
taking his victory lap.
Taking his victory lap. The lawsuit got dismissed, and so the challenge to the law in Nevada is no more. Now, the lawsuit in Minnesota and Arizona keep going, and my team is fighting that, and you can follow those all on Democracy Docket. But the Nevada one got dismissed. But what's up with Bannon? Constantly, he's monitoring me.
Yeah. Well, he's not the only one. I believe was it Lou Dobbs who made you your big money offer? Was that Lou Dobbs?
Lou Dobbs made the $500 million offer. Which
to do what? What was it, to bring you over to the right? Was
yeah.
That what they wanted to do?
We should show the clip.
Mark Elias, why don't you guys put together $500 million and go hire him and get him out of your way? It's extraordinary. The president warns for months and months and months about mail-in ballots and the potential for fraud, and the Republicans do nothing, Stephen. Nothing.
It's an outrage.
What's wrong? What's wrong?
Yeah. So essentially, as you see, Lou Dobbs wanted Stephen Miller to pay me $500 million to simply sit it out, just to stop beating them in court.
Yeah. Not even to go to their side.
No.
They're like, the money will be worth it just if you stop.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I think if ever there was a good reason to ask people to sign up for Democracy Docket, which is the outlet that you founded, focused on everything voting in elections, it is the fact that the other side is trying to offer you $500 million to stop doing it. So that's a free subscription to a newsletter that the other side thinks is worth $500 million. So I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Mark, I still think it's worth focusing on the fact that the biggest megaphones on the right are focusing on being able to harass election workers, for example. Why is this their priority?
Because they know they can't win if everyone's allowed to vote and if the vote counting is able to go forward, right? They need to make it harder to vote and easier to cheat. And so the harder to vote part is all of the voter suppression stuff you and I talk about. But I think that as we get closer to the election, people are going to spend more and more time focused on the other half of this, which is the easier to cheat. And that's fundamentally the game that, whether it's Laura Trump talking about, touching ballots, handling ballots, which, would require the infiltration of election offices, or are these lawsuits, which are crazy. They are literally suing for the right to be able to harass election workers. Why do they want to be able to harass election workers? Because if they can't convince the election workers to do what they want to be able to intimidate them into doing what they feel like they need to do.
Well, that kind of lends itself to my next question, which is, what kind of a chilling effect is this going to have on these normal people who just are looking to do their civic duty and work the polls? And I guess as a follow-up to that, because this is kind of the point, who would take their place?
Right. So I think that you need to look at this in two phases. Right now, as we sit here, there has been article after article and alarm bell after alarm bell about the fact that good election officials are leaving the system. We saw mass retirements after 2020 going into 2022, and people who stuck it out through 2022 because of midterm are now facing the prospect of Donald Trump again, and you are seeing good people leave the system. So that is challenge number one. The second point, though, you made is critically important, which is who's replacing them, right? Because it's not like, okay, you need 10 election officials and, 5 leave, and so you go forward with 5. What winds up happening is those 5 get replaced, say, with 3. Well, who are those 3? Right? Those 3 are being recruited and trained and told to, as I said, infiltrate the election offices. This is why Laura Trump talks about them getting people to be able to handle the ballots, right? Get these people into the election offices and cause all kinds of issues. And look, we already saw, in 2021, 2022, what happens when that happens. In Colorado, I believe there was a woman who got criminally prosecuted for what she did as an election worker, election official. And I think we're going to see more and more of Steve Bannon's efforts and others like him to try to, like I said, infiltrate these election offices.
And there's an asymmetry here because those people don't have to worry about being harassed because the harassers are on their own side. And so the only people who have to worry about the harassment are people who are just these nonpartisan regular folks doing their civic duty. But if they get replaced by these right-wing vigilantes who were sent there on their mission by Steve Bannon and his folks, then they don't have to worry about doing harassing because, it's their side that's doing it.
That's right. And what oftentimes happens in these situations, which is pernicious and will be a disaster for democracy, is that a kind of split the difference mentality winds up taking place. I mean, it's kind of like the media and both sides. You see this where the media is like, well, Donald Trump is indicted and sitting in a courtroom falling asleep every day in the middle of his criminal trial, but but Joe Biden, doesn't do enough events.
Right. He did one event in Wisconsin. Right.
Right. And so you kind of see that same thing, and I worry as we get close to the election, which is that we will have these instances of where Republicans are undermining free and fair elections, where they have successfully infiltrated offices, where they are challenging voters, and the media's reaction will be like, well, maybe we should give them a little bit of room to harass. Maybe we should allow them to have more opportunities to handle ballots, even if they don't have as much as they want. And I worry about that because I try to take an absolutist position on voter suppression, which is that there's no amount of voter suppression that's permissible. But you've seen the way it is outside of what you and I talk about. There's this natural effort to try to find a middle ground.
Right. And it's just, they know that it's a game of attrition, and they know that that they've gamed the refs enough in the media to know that the media will eventually give them a little bit. They'll say, like, in the same way that the Republicans right now are trying to say, okay, we want a full abortion ban, but how about 15 weeks? Right. And those of us who do take an absolutist position, I would argue very rightly, are saying, how about the negotiation is no bans whatsoever, no amount of weeks, and that's it. But there will be an effort by people to say, okay, one side wants this, so we have to meet in the middle.
Right. And so one of the things I say to folks when they ask me, because I get this a lot, people are like, well, Mark, you're such an extremist, you're such a partisan, all you do is sue and badmouth Republicans, and I say, no. First of all, if you look at my history, before Donald Trump, I was not viewed as someone who was, unwilling to work with Republicans, number one. But number two, what I tell them is there is no compromise between a firefighter and an arsonist. Okay? And so the Republicans are arsonists. They are trying to burn our democracy down. And for those people, I count myself among them, who are firefighters. We are trying to put the fire out. Now, you can say whether I'm effective or you're effective, but we are firefighters. We are trying to put the fire out. And for the mainstream media or for others who may be well-meaning to say, well, shouldn't you find a middle ground between you and them? There's no middle ground between a firefighter and an arsonist.
Right. Perfectly put. Mark, what is your message then to regular people who were otherwise election workers or poll workers who may have a point in thinking to themselves, I didn't sign up for this. I was just trying to be a good citizen, and now I'm being harassed by some right-wing vigilante in the parking lot.
Yeah.
What do you say to those people to keep good people in the system so that they don't get replaced by the Steve Bannon acolytes?
Two things. Number one, it is a responsibility of all of us as citizens to do what we can do at this time of great peril in our democracy. For some people, that is going to be using their megaphones like you have to every day make sure people know what the threat to democracy is and what they can do to fix it. For people like me who are a lawyer, I try to use my megaphone, but I also, we go to court, right? And Democracy.com publishes a daily and weekly newsletter. I do the things I can do. For people who are trained and certified as election workers and election officials, or have time to become trained and work as election officials, that is the part you can do. And you cannot back down. You cannot operate in fear. You cannot try to find a middle ground. Because when we retreat from the public square, When we say, we don't, you know what, you say, Brian, you know, I don't need the harassment. Who needs more people, sending you email? I say, I've litigated enough cases. When the election officials say, you know what, I don't want to work another election, the bad guys win. Democracy loses. So all of us need to do our part.
Yeah, and it's never been more important. Look, if you were, I would say that if you were willing to do your civic duty before, and recognizing how important it was before, this is the time when it's most important. It's never been more important than it is right now. So if you were willing to stand up before because you recognized that doing your civic duty was important, then it's 2, 3, 4 times more important right now. Mark, let's finish off with this. What do you believe is the broader fix to this problem so it's not just scattershot responses?
So we need congressional legislation. So I hope everyone, marks this tape. You need to vote in November like democracy is on the line, okay? Because it is. You need to vote in November like this could be the last free and fair election we have, because it could be. And you need to vote for Joe Biden and the Democrats up and down the ticket, no matter what else you may, whatever policy proposals you may be disappointed with, you need to vote for them up and down the ballot. And then, when Democrats are in positions of power, when we have a trifecta, a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate, a Democratic President, we need to insist that there is a sweeping pro-voter legislative package. The Freedom to Vote Act came close to passing. It would have solved most of these problems. The John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act came very close to passing. Neither of them attracted any Republican support in the House. Not a single Republican voted for it in the House. So we need everyone to vote Democratic for the Democratic candidates, but then we need to put at the top of our agenda federal legislation.
Perfectly put. We'll leave it there. Again, for folks right now who are looking to support the invaluable work that Mark and his team are doing right now in the courts, on social media, please sign up for Democracy Docket. That is the good information that we need to lift up amid this whole barrage of disinformation out there in this kind of social media ecosystem. So I'll put the link right here on the screen, and it's also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Mark Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.